All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Monday, August 7th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We are doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat Clayton. This was, I would say, not a shocking weekend at the box office, but there were some definite surprises up at the top that I am excited to talk about. And also, this episode, just to let you know, a good portion of this episode is going to be devoted to breaking down this late breaking video that we have of The Rock talking about Black Adam on the Kevin Hart show. And we are going to break it down like the Zapruder film. So you have to stay tuned for that. This is a huge video dissection of Dwayne The Rock Johnson coming later in the show. But Clayton, let's get it started with a plow for the weekend of Friday, August 4th.
Number one, Barbie, for the third weekend in a row, made $53 million, down 43%. It lost 152 theaters. 159 theaters. It is at $459.3 million in its third frame. Number two, a newbie, MEG 2, The Trench, made $30 million in its first frame. Number three, Oppenheimer made $28.7 million, down only 39%. It lost 35 theaters. It's standing at $228.5 million in its third weekend. Number four, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem made $27.9 million in its first weekend. It was a Wednesday opener, so its total gross stands at $43 million. Number five, Haunted Mansion made $8.9 million, down 63%, no theater change. It is at $42 million in its second weekend. Number six, Sound of Freedom made $7 million, down 45%. It's finally losing some theaters. It lost 436 theaters. It's at $163.4 million in its fifth frame. Number seven, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 made $6.4 million, down 39%. It lost another 769 theaters. It's at $151 million in its fourth weekend. And number eight, Talk to Me made $6.2 million, down only 40%. It added 30 theaters. It's at $22.1 million in its second weekend. And we're going to stop there. That's all we really need to talk about. There's
Our,
plenty in this top eight.
yeah, a lot to talk about. I mean, we're going to get to the big topic for this weekend. I think it's the two newbies, Meg 2 versus Ninja Turtles. A little surprise there. But just looking at some of the bottom of the list movies, Talk to Me, the horror
Mm-hmm.
film from A24, great hold, only dropped 40% in its second weekend, made 6.2 million and made 10 million last weekend. I saw this film this
Mm-hmm.
past Thursday night, and I will say I get it. It's a great premise. It is cool teenage or young adult characters. The Rocka Rocka guys, as wannabe O intern Christopher informed us, are very big with the youth. And I think they pulled off a horror film that the youth will be interested in. So I get why this hold is so strong. And I really think this thing is going to play through the summer, having seen it now. I think Talk to Me is not going to be, listen, it's not Blair Witch. There's not going to be a Blair Witch sensation type film.
No.
But this movie is now at 22 million after its first 10 days. And I think we're looking at a movie that could end up doing double that. You know, this feels Barbarian esque. And what did Barbarian do? It got to around 40 million. I could see it doing a Barbarian level run. You know, it's that sort of fun horror movie. Doesn't have the stars. There's no Justin Long in Talk to Me, but I think it's got that similarly buzzy, fun premise that is going to play really well for another month straight.
Yeah, so its only competition really is going to be Voyage of the Demeter, right?
Yes, Voyage of the Demeter. And just a heads up, we are going to have Brett from the New Flesh, our lead horror correspondent, will be on a Voyage of the Demeter adjacent episode, either the preview or the
Great.
results episode, but he will be here. And I got a message from Brett of Flush about Talk to Me. He loved the movie and quote, this is what he said, insane hold. Clayton, do you think this was an insane hold?
I think it's a really I think it's I wouldn't say insane, but I think it's a great hold because of the competition. There's so many movies
Yep.
right now making so much money, and horror movies do drop usually pretty high because people rush out, they wanna be scared first, they wanna be the
Yeah.
first people to say, "I puked, I cried, I
Yep.
peed myself,
Yep.
I
Yep.
threw my popcorn all over the place." And I think for this film at this level, 40% is really good.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say insane because insane is like if it would have dropped 6%. That's insane to
That's
me.
insane. Well, I mean,
40% is a great, but here's the thing: next weekend, this
mhm.
thing could drop in the single digits or the low double digits, and then that would be insane.
That would be insane. And listen, Brett from the New Flesh, he is an advocate for horror. He is, of course, inventor of hashtag horror lifestyle. So he is always going to uh uh pump up and hype horror. He's the horror hype man. So of course, him saying insane, he's got to go to that level um on this. But I would agree it's not quite insane, but it's excellent. It's an
Yes.
excellent hold.
So let's just talk really quickly and very quickly
Very quickly.
about Dead Reckoning, which I reckon is dead. Dropped another 769 theaters. It's only in 2,422 theaters. It's
Mhm.
being beat every weekend by Sound of Freedom, which is outgrossing it and will continue to outgross it. It's going to outgross Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible will be outgrossed by Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which stands at 170.
Yes, it's not gonna catch that. Alright, well, I was actually gonna throw this out there because yes, this was another weekend where Sound of Freedom made more than Mission Impossible. Sound of Freedom did 7, Mission Impossible did 6.45. But the gap is closing a little bit. Do you think we are getting to a point where Mission Impossible could flip that and end up starting to have weekends where it makes more than Sound of Freedom? And second question, will Tom Cruise try as hard as he can? Because Cruise movies get as long of a run at the box office as any movies these days get. It's not going to PVOD. It's not going to streaming anytime soon. Could Tom Cruise will this movie, will Dead Reckoning Part 1, to end up closing the gap and somehow making more than Sound of Freedom? Is that at all possible? Because I think that is possible, even though Sound of Freedom is still having a weekend where it grosses more. But I think that's going to flip soon.
Nothing is impossible, but there's just so many other things to see and so many other movies to put on screens. Why would you continue to have Mission Impossible on screens when you have Oppenheimer still rolling, Barbie still rolling, you have Meg 2 doing surprising numbers, you've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which
Right.
has done really well that could continue to go into the fall. I do talk to me, a
Right.
sleeper horror hit. I just don't see why you would continue to put screens up for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. It is not in the zeitgeist. It's not being talked about.
Right.
If you
I
look at
mean,
all of these movies, maybe Haunted Mansion is the only movie in this top 8 that isn't being talked about in some capacity.
and that's probably going to shed screens big time in the next few weeks.
Oh,
But
yeah, Haunted Mansion
you're,
is dead, down 63%. This thing is
yeah,
deader than a dodo. It's not even gonna it's not even gonna sniff the farts of the, original one from
yeah,
2003.
yeah. I mean, haunted. I mean, the big. I don't know how much this Voyage of the Demeter is going to get in terms of screens next weekend, but in 2 weeks you've got that New Punies and Blue Beetle opening the same weekend. And whatever we think of Blue Beetle, it's going to be a disaster, but it's going to get a lot of screens opening weekend. And that
Mhm.
could be the weekend where Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning falls down to, 1,000 screens or less.
Yeah,
Um,
there's, like,
so
truly no reason to
yeah,
continue to have it in theaters.
yeah. So Probably that is gonna be the case where Dead Reckoning is not gonna catch Sound of Freedom. Like you said, Haunted Mansion is a disaster, dropped 63%. It's really a movie no one cares about, and I've heard the chatter of, people saying, why didn't they put Haunted Mansion out in October? Well, it's spooky season. To me, here's the play. They put it out in July because they want it on Disney Plus by October 1st.
Yes, because you know what their priority is to just put everything on D+.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And
that's the
this was
priority.
never gonna draw at the box office. So honestly, I don't even think that's a bad strategy. Get it out in the summer and have it be something you could pretend people care about in October on Disney Plus.
Yeah, the original opened at 24, which is similar to what this one opened at, but it legged out to 75, and that is not happening here. And,
Not happening.
listen, for Haunted Mansion, it just went up against a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
But we're
Yeah.
seeing other movies going up against this buzzsaw and doing reasonably well. And these movies
Mhm.
are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Madness, Mayhem. I keep
Mutant
saying
Mayhem.
madness.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's
It's
Marble
mayhem.
Madness,
Yeah.
but it's Mutant Mayhem.
Yeah, this is a kids movie, so they're gonna go with mayhem over madness. Madness would almost seem like the mutants are rioting. Mayhem
Yes.
is more like the mutants are just having like a wild party, but it's
Yeah.
not full on like cars aren't burning and stuff like that.
So there was a sort of a battle between Meg 2, The
Mhm.
Trench, Oppenheimer, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
Mutant mayhem.
Yes, for the number 2 spot, and that was happening all weekend. And they were saying that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was gonna be up there because the estimates were pretty high for the 3-day on this. Because didn't the 3-day reach at least 32 in estimates?
Well, I think what happened with the 3-day total for Mutant Mayhem is this was a 5-day weekend. They opened the movie on the Wednesday. So when that happens, the Thursday numbers do not become part of the 3-day, as
Mhm.
opposed to when a movie opens on a Friday, the Thursday night preview numbers get rolled into the 3-day total. So whenever you open a movie on a Wednesday and do a 5-day, you are going to hurt what the 3-day count ends
Yes.
up being. So I think if Turtles had opened on a Friday instead of a Wednesday, it would have had a much bigger 3-day. Uh,
Absolutely, because it is a kids-centric movie, and we saw this movie.
yeah.
And it is very kid friendly. It feels
Yes.
very much for young kids and tweens,
Yes.
and they are not going to the movies without parents or guardians in the middle of the day on a Thursday,
Right. Right.
right? So
Right.
they're gonna go with their parents on a Friday
Saturday and
afternoon, on
Sunday.
a Friday,
Yeah.
yeah, Saturday, Sunday. Those are the days, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this 43 million dollar 5-day is very good, and that's what we
Yes.
should be looking at.
Yes.
Losing to Meg and Oppenheimer and only losing by, like, less than 3 million is not bad. This is not anything to be worried about with this Turtles movie
Yeah.
because I do think it's gonna have legs.
Yes. Having now we have both seen this and I now having seen it, I for sure think this is gonna do really well.
Mhm.
I like this movie. It is a kids movie, but I think it's a kids movie that parents are not gonna pull their hair out while they're watching. And I think it's a kids movie that feels modern enough that
Mhm.
modern kids legitimately will want to watch it. This is not your grandfather's Turtles. This
No,
is this is your Turtles, kids. This is your Turtles for your generation.
and we had a conversation about this too, where this and Spidey cartoon,
Yes.
both of these movies actually use animation to its maximum, right?
Yes.
It's there's a reason for it to be a cartoon,
Yes.
unlike Pixar, right? In those sort of movies, which they try to tell like adult stories with cartoon characters, but they hardly ever use the fact that these are drawings and
Yes.
you can
Yes.
do whatever you want with them.
Yeah.
And this had a very cool art style. Gross. I mean, it's a gross movie.
The Turtles are gross, which we love.
It's a scuzzy, slimy, gross movie. Scuzz is
Yeah.
back.
Yes.
It's coming back slower than I thought, but, I said this, God, maybe a year, 2 years ago, that this is gonna be a scuzzy generation coming up.
Mhm,
Young
mhm,
people are very scuzzy, and
mhm.
it's starting to break through, and this is a very scuzzy movie, and we're very proud of this movie for being as scuzzy as it is, and I think these young kids are going to really look at this movie as, "Oh, this was my introduction to scuzz."
Yes, yes, yes. This is gateway scuzz, this Mutant Mayhem movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a Ren and Stimpy. It didn't listen. This did not go full Ren and Stimpy, and no kids movie should go full Ren and Stimpy.
No.
But it had Ren and Stimpy adjacent animation to it in a way that we haven't
Well,
seen in a long
it's
time.
more Duckman. You say Ren and
You
Stimpy, but it's not that cartoonish. It's more of a liquid television sort of,
mhm.
I don't wanna say early Beavis and Butthead, but there's a rawness to this
Yeah.
and an ugliness to the characters that it's very interesting.
Do you think that any millions were lost this opening weekend because the marketing for Mutant Mayhem didn't say, "Hey, this is like Duckman," because they did not do that.
Mhm.
But you've made that Duckman comparison a lot since we've seen this film. Should they have leaned more on, "This will remind you of Duckman"?
Not millions. We're not talking millions. We're talking about 75,000.
Oh, I mean, that's an amazing number. I mean, Jason Alexander would be delighted to hear that there's still $75,000 worth of Duckman fans out there.
And there could be
So,
$75 million worth of Duckman fans listening to this podcast right now because we are popping off. So
yeah.
that may lead to them actually going to see this film.
Yeah. So here, going into this weekend, I think we both predicted two things. We predicted that Turtles would do well, have a
Mhm.
3-day, in the around 30, in the 30s. I think I went mid to high 30s, but we both thought that would do well. But we both thought Meg to the Trench would underperform, and
Mhm.
neither of us thought it would end up ahead of Turtles, never mind Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And it opened to $30 million. So we're going to talk Turtles as we continue here, but what Meg to the Trench, how did this overperform? This got terrible reviews. And it's a
Mhm.
sequel to a hit movie, but a hit movie that also got terrible reviews. So,
Yeah.
uh, it didn't match the opening weekend. The first one, opened to 44 million. This is 30. So it's a pretty decent drop, but this 30 is still much higher than either of us thought was going to happen.
Yeah. I guess it was TV spots. It was just the fact that this was being promoted all over the place
Hmm.
and people want to go see movies right now. And this is a new movie. And I guess you can't underestimate the power of sharks as an IP.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought we were done with sharks. I feel like sharks are the bacon of the animal world. How everybody says, "Oh, bacon's great, everything bacon." Sharks are kind of that way.
Okay.
They're a
Sharks are
little bit
bacon.
they're a little bit, mid, as you would say, but
Okay.
there's enough people who wanna see sharks in this
Right.
country that they went to see this movie. Also, I mean, Statham is a guy that people like, and a guy that people know, and so there was a certain contingent that went out to see him. And so I think this movie is not gonna do well in the long term because I think once they've seen it, they're gonna say, "Oh, this is as sucky as the first one was,"
Right. Right.
but there is enough juice to get this one to 30, which is
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I am surprised that sharks are so well. I mean, you said sharks are bacon and maybe bacon is mid, but people buy bacon by the truckload. I mean, anytime I'm in a supermarket, that bacon section is just a total free for all. It is jam packed. You're
Yeah.
looking at a line just to grab that bacon off the shelf. So whatever you think of bacon, people are buying bacon and people love sharks. And it is a win for sharks over turtles. It's a win for, I think.
It's not a no. I
No?
disagree. It's not a
Okay.
win Sharks over Turtles because, like we said, it was the 5-day versus the 3-day. If Turtles woulda opened just in a 3-day, it would have beat the Meg.
Okay.
It would have beat Meg too. So this is not a win Sharks over Turtles. The Shark over Turtle race is going to continue. It's how well does the Turtles hold compared to how well does the Meg hold. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think long term, yeah, next weekend Meg's gonna fall off a cliff. I think Turtles are gonna hold really well because it's a good movie and it's a kids' movie and rats need their cheese, so on and so
Yeah.
forth. A movie that is the opposite of that was 2022's Black Adam, starring
Okay,
Dwayne
let's
The
get
Rock
into
Johnson.
this. Let's get
So
into
let's
it.
get into this. So Dwayne Johnson was a guest recently on a Peacock show called Heart to Heart, starring Kevin Hart. And the first Hart is spelled Hart, like Kevin Hart's name. The second
Mhm.
Hart is spelled like a human heart, Heart. So just to
Yeah.
set that table there. It's a streaming show. This is the kind of thing that is on streaming.
Well, that's
Uh,
all Kevin Hart does now.
I mean, the show itself is an example of the worst case scenario for someone like Greta Gerwig, because Kevin Hart was once someone who, not a Barbie level, of course, but was a theatrical star. This
Mhm.
guy opened movies. The Upside, starring Kevin Hart, made over 100 million domestic. This guy was a genuine movie draw, and now he has streaming shows up the wazoo.
Oh, Pat, I have his box office history here. Okay, so we're not going to go too far down
Yeah,
because
we got to get to The Rock, but
what we need to focus on is pre-pandemic. Kevin Hart had movies released in theaters. He had 3 movies in 2019. January 11th, 2019, The Upside, 108.
wow.
That thing was leggy as all hell.
Mhm.
June 7th, The Secret Life of Pets 2, which, listen, not as big as the first one. We know this. But still, 158 domestic. Jumanji, The Next Level, 2019, $316.8 million domestic.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
He has not had anything domestically released since then, other than DC League of Super Pets, where he was a voice, and that made 93.6. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say he's the star of that movie. Everything else has been direct to streaming. I'm seeing blanks in the box office, domestic,
Wow.
international, worldwide, blank. Fatherhood 2021, blank. 2022, The Man from Toronto, blank. Me Time, August 26, 2022, blank. Die Hard, the movie, 2023, blank. Lift, 2023, blank. Borderlands, I think that's coming up next year, so that
But we'll
doesn't
be
count.
blank.
But will
But
be but will be blank probably. I don't know. That might be released in theaters, but
s
still, nothing
yeah. So
in
Kevin Hart
theatrical.
is someone who used to be a movie star. Now he hosts streaming talk shows. And on a recent episode of Heart to Heart, his guest was Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And listen, I'm not gonna I didn't watch this whole episode, so I don't know what they ended up talking about for the whole hour. Probably a lot of it was devoted to The Rock's liquor company and
Mhm.
the XFL and all that. But the part that we are going to play and dissect is a section where Dwayne The Rock Johnson once again talked about Black Adam and once again talked about how this movie should have been the start of franchise, and also talked about how it was a huge success.
Yeah, of
So
course. He talked to his financiers. I'm surprised the financiers didn't show up. I mean, Kevin Hart should have had the financiers backstage.
yeah, I mean, listen, we're gonna play this, and obviously these two are friends. These two have co-starred in a lot of projects, cameoed in each other's stuff, and Kevin Hart is here shilling for The Rock, for his friend, and,
Okay.
you can't blame him. But that is what we're gonna witness here. So
Okay, let's
we are
start it,
going,
Pat.
we are going to now play this. And if you're watching on YouTube, on the BO Boys YouTube channel, you will be able to see this now. There we go. We could see it. So, hey, everybody. This is BO Boy Pat breaking into the episode with some unfortunate news. So, in the episode as it airs on the podcast feed. At this point, for the rest of the episode, Clayton and I spent about 20 or 30 minutes breaking down a interview with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on the Peacock show Heart to Heart, starring Kevin Hart. And in this segment, The Rock talked about Black Adam. He talks about his delusional point of view that Black Adam was a huge hit. Talked about why Black Adam is not going to continue as a franchise at Warner Brothers. He blamed it on, among other things, a vortex of new leadership and then a web of new leadership. Anyway, that was a powerful segment that we created, but unfortunately, it cannot air on the YouTube episode that you're watching. We uploaded it and were hit immediately with a copyright strike by the owners of the Heart to Heart show at Peacock, which of course we know in reality came from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The truths that we espoused while running through and critiquing this interview were too powerful to air on this channel, so they did not allow it to happen. So basically, this is where we have to cut off this episode. We cannot show you the footage of the BO Boys dissecting the Heart to Heart interview with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. We are not allowed, so we had to air this shortened version of this episode. But if you do want to hear, and you do, because this is important, powerful stuff that the powers that be are trying to hide. If you want to hear our breakdown of The Rock's interview on Heart to Heart, go to whatever podcast app you use, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is, and listen to the latest episode of the BO Boys, because as of now, our breakdown of The Rock's interview on Heart to Heart is being aired in its entirety on the podcast feed. So the audio only feed, we do have that full breakdown. As of now, we do not know what The Rock's next move is going to be. We do not know how long that segment will be able to air even in an audio only form. So listen now, go to your podcast app, listen to the latest episode of the BO Boys, and you will be able to, as of right now, hear the BO Boys discuss The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on Heart to Heart. And that's it. This is where I leave you. So thank you for watching us on YouTube. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, ring that bell, and we will be back on this YouTube channel very shortly. Even if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson does not want us to be, we will be right back here. Thank you from the BO Boys, and until next time, we'll smell you at the box office.